The house looked exactly the way it always had, polished, composed, and carefully arranged to suggest stability. That was the first thing that told me nothing had changed. I had not planned to be here. I only came because my grandmother, Virginia Foster, insisted on hosting New Year's Eve herself this year. When she asked, she didn't plead. She never needed to. The moment I stepped inside, my mother's smile tightened just a fraction too late. "You made it." Her voice carried warmth meant for an audience. "I was worried traffic would keep you away." My father lingered behind her, nodding, already retreating into the familiar role of silent agreement. Across the room, my younger sister Natalie leaned against the counter, scrolling on her phone, perfectly at ease. She looked like someone who had never questioned whether she belonged. Virginia sat at the head of the table, hands folded, eyes sharp. When she met my gaze, something steadied inside me. Before the dinner could begin, before the champagne corks popped and the countdown banners mattered, she motioned for everyone to sit. I took my place quietly. The entire content of the video is a fictional work created by the writing team of the Revenge Mosaicum channel, intended to reflect common conflicts in families and society, helping viewers recognize their emotions and choose a more positive way of living. Conversation flowed easily, too easily. My mother guided it with precision, redirecting whenever my name came up. My father followed along. Natalie laughed at the right moments. Virginia watched, as plates were cleared and glasses refilled. My mother raised her drink. A toast to fresh starts, to family, to leaving the past behind. I noticed Virginia didn't lift her glass. She placed it down instead. The sound, quiet but final. "Before we step into a new year," her voice carried calmly across the table, "there's something I want clear." No one interrupted. Her gaze settled on me. "Abigail, how is the apartment treating you?" The room stilled. I felt every eye turn my way. "I'm managing." The words came evenly. "It's small, but it's mine." Virginia nodded once, then looked around the table. "Good, because clarity matters. Especially tonight. If this story resonates with you, stay with me." Sometimes the truth only surfaces when everyone is finally forced to sit at the same table. Virginia's attention remained on me, patient and unblinking. The place in Philadelphia, her tone stayed gentle. "How long have you lived there?" "Almost 4 years," I answered, keeping my voice level. "It's a studio, nothing fancy." My mother leaned forward too quickly. "Mom, you don't need to worry about her apartment. Abigail's always preferred simple things." Virginia acknowledged the interruption with a brief nod, then turned back to me. "And the rent?" I hesitated only a moment. "About $1,350 a month. Utilities not included." Natalie let out a soft laugh, the kind meant to sound casual. "See, she's doing fine, always so independent." Virginia's eyes shifted to my mother, independent enough to cover that on her own. My mother's smile tightened. "We've helped where necessary. You know that." Virginia folded her hands. "That's exactly what I want to understand." The air felt heavier with every word. "I've been sending support," she continued, her voice steady, consistently, "for housing and living expenses." My heart skipped. I forced myself to stay still. My father cleared his throat. "Mom, this isn't the time." Virginia didn't look at him. "The time is now." Her gaze returned to me. "Abigail, you've never mentioned receiving it." I couldn't. The truth slipped out quietly. "Because I didn't know it existed." Silence spread across the table. Virginia turned back to the others, her expression unreadable. "Then explain to me why I have been transferring $2,200 every month." "For your daughter, without her knowledge." No one moved. If you've ever felt a conversation closing in on you like this, stay with me. The hardest moments are the ones no one can talk their way out of. Virginia didn't raise her voice. She never needed to. For 51 consecutive months, Her words landed one by one. Money left my account on the 3rd of each month. $2,200. Every time. My mother's fingers tightened around her glass. That was family support. We handled it responsibly. Virginia inclined her head slightly. Then you won't mind explaining the total. She paused just long enough for the silence to stretch. $112,200. The number settled into my chest like a weight. I stared at the table, trying to breathe normally. 51 months. All that time. All those nights counting tips and skipping meals. Natalie shifted in her chair. Grandma, you're making it sound dramatic. Mom and Dad were just helping Abigail in their own way. Virginia's gaze moved to her. Helping requires consent. It also requires honesty. My father finally spoke. His voice low. Mom, Abigail wasn't in a position to manage money back then. A sharp inhale escaped me. You never gave me the chance. My mother reached for control. You were sick. You were overwhelmed. We did what parents do. Virginia leaned back, studying her carefully. Parents protect. They don't erase. She turned to me again. At any point, were you told about this support? No. The word came out steady, even surprised me. Not once. Virginia nodded, as if a final piece had clicked into place. Then what you call management looks very different from where I'm sitting. Her hand slid toward her phone, deliberate and calm. If you're listening because you've lived through something similar, she added quietly, stay with us. Truth has a way of surfacing when numbers stop being abstract. The screen lit up in her palm, and I don't intend to leave this unanswered. My mother moved first, as if urgency itself could rewrite history. This is being taken out of context. Her voice pressed forward, calm on the surface. Abigail chose to leave. She wanted independence. We respected that. The words hit harder than shouting ever could. I kept my eyes on Virginia. That isn't what happened. My father finally leaned in, palms flat on the table. You were struggling back then. Emotionally. We thought space would help. Being told to pack a bag in winter isn't space. My reply stayed quiet, steady. It's exile. Natalie crossed her arms, impatience flashing across her face. You always twist things. You hated living here. You said you couldn't breathe in this house. I said I felt invisible. The correction came immediately. There's a difference. My mother exhaled sharply. Your memory hasn't always been reliable. You were ill. We did what was necessary. Virginia's gaze hardened. Necessary for whom silence followed, thick and uncomfortable. Natalie broke it with a shrug. Even if money was involved, it wasn't wasted. It kept things stable. It kept the family afloat. My pulse thudded in my ears. It kept you comfortable. The truth slipped out. While I worked nights and counted coins, my mother's voice softened, dangerous in its restraint. We protected you from responsibility you couldn't handle. Virginia leaned forward then, her presence suddenly unmistakable. Protection does not involve secrecy, and care does not require lies. She turned to me. Abigail, when you left this house, did you have a plan? No, the answer felt bare. I had a jacket and a borrowed couch. Virginia nodded once, slow and deliberate. Then we are done reframing, she concluded. From this point on, we deal only in facts. Her hand settled fully over her phone, signaling the shift. The room no longer belonged to my parents. Virginia's silence gave me room I hadn't expected. I used it. When I left, my voice held steady despite the pressure in my chest. I slept on a friend's couch in South Philadelphia. 2 weeks turned into 2 months because I couldn't afford a deposit. My mother shook her head slowly, a practiced gesture of disbelief. We offered help. You never accepted it. I called. The memory surfaced intact. I asked for enough to renew the lease I had lined up. The answer was no. My father avoided my eyes. We didn't think it was safe for you to be alone, so I worked nights." The words continued, unbroken. "I waited tables after my day job. I learned which shifts paid cash because tips mattered. I learned which medications I could delay when rent was due." Natalie scoffed. "That was your choice. Plenty of people hustle." "I hustled to survive." The correction landed cleanly. "You vacationed." Her face flushed. That trip was a graduation gift. Virginia finally spoke. Paid for how Natalie's confidence faltered. "Mom handled it. My mother stepped in, sharp and defensive. Every family reallocates resources. That doesn't make it theft. It does when the person named never sees a cent." Virginia countered. I pressed on, quieter now. "While you remodeled the kitchen, while a new car appeared in the driveway, while my messages went unanswered, my father's voice cracked. We were under stress too." I met his gaze. "Stress didn't keep me warm that winter. It didn't cover medication. It didn't show up when I needed a place to land." Virginia's chair shifted back slightly. Her composure never wavered, but something colder entered the room. "Enough," she declared. "I've heard how this was justified. Now I'm going to see how it was funded." Her phone lit up in her hand. "If this story feels familiar," she added, almost to the room itself, "it's because silence always asks someone else to pay." She tapped the screen, ending the debate. The air changed instantly. For the first time that night, my parents looked afraid. Virginia moved with the certainty of someone who had already decided the outcome. Her phone rested against her ear as she spoke to her financial advisor. Voice level, precise. Names, dates, instructions followed in clean succession. There was no anger in it, only direction. When the call ended, she placed the phone on the table between us. "We'll wait," she announced. My mother's composure fractured. "This is unnecessary. You're humiliating us." Virginia's attention never left the screen. Truth has a way of feeling like humiliation when it's overdue. Natalie checked the time on her phone. The countdown's starting. The television in the other room began its familiar rhythm. 10 minutes to midnight. 9. My father rubbed his hands together. "Mom, think about what you're doing." Virginia finally looked at him. "I am..." The phone vibrated softly. She picked it up, glasses sliding onto her nose. Her eyes moved slowly as she scrolled. Each second stretched tighter than the last. Transfers confirmed. She began, voice calm. $2,200 deposited monthly into Cynthia's personal account. My mother opened her mouth. Virginia lifted a hand, stopping her. "Now the expenditures." She continued, "Tuition payments to a private college, vehicle lease withdrawals, airline tickets, hotel charges, all timed within days of each deposit." Natalie's chair scraped against the floor. "That doesn't mean anything." Virginia turned the screen so everyone could see. "It means the money earmarked for Abigail's survival funded your comfort." The room fell silent except for the television. 5, 4, 3. My mother's voice broke. We didn't think she'd ever know. 2, 1. Cheers erupted from the screen. Fireworks lit the sky somewhere far away. No one at the table moved. Virginia looked directly at my parents. "Explain where my granddaughter's life went while you were spending it." My father's shoulders collapsed inward. My mother's hands trembled, gripping the table as if it might disappear. I felt strangely still. Virginia locked her phone and set it down. "Midnight marks a beginning," she continued. "Tonight. It marks the end of lies." She rose from her seat and turned to me. "We're leaving." As we stepped away from the table, my mother whispered my name. Desperation stripped bare. I didn't turn back. Outside, the new year had already begun. Inside that house, everything had finally caught up. The silence followed us out of the house, thick and unresolved. Virginia drove without comment. Her hands were steady on the wheel, eyes fixed ahead. I watched the passing lights blur, my phone already vibrating in my coat pocket. The first call came before we reached the end of the block. My mother's name flashed. I declined it. Another followed. Then a message appeared. Words stacked in urgency. "We can explain. This doesn't have to go further." Virginia glanced at the screen when I showed her. "They're afraid," she observed calmly. "Fear arrives late, but it always arrives." A second message came through, this time from my father. "You've made your point. Let's handle this privately." Natalie didn't wait. Her text landed sharper. "How could you do this to us? You're destroying the family." My fingers hovered for a moment before the screen went dark. One by one. "I blocked them all." Virginia nodded, approving but gentle. "Boundaries don't need speeches." At her house, she poured tea and finally spoke again. "What happens next depends on what you want." I met her gaze. "I want it to stop. Completely." She reached across the table and rested her hand over mine. "Then we make it official. No negotiations. No rewriting." Outside, distant fireworks cracked the sky. Inside, the choice had already been made. Virginia straightened. "Tomorrow, I'll call my attorney." I exhaled for the first time that night. The year had started without celebration, but with something steadier in its place. The courtroom stripped everything of warmth. Virginia sat beside me, composed, unreadable. Across the aisle, my parents looked smaller than I remembered. My mother's confidence had thinned into something brittle. My father avoided my eyes entirely. Natalie wasn't there. Virginia's attorney spoke without drama, presenting the timeline with surgical clarity. 51 monthly transfers, $2,200 each time. A total of $112,200. Memo lines naming me. Expenditure records tracing the money away from me and into tuition payments, vehicle leases, and travel expenses. My mother's lawyer tried to soften it. This was family assistance, not theft. Virginia leaned forward slightly. Assistance does not require secrecy, and family does not erase accountability. The judge listened. Notes were taken. The gavel stayed still until it didn't. The ruling came without flourish. Full repayment of $112,200. Statutory interest added. Legal costs assigned to my parents. My mother's breath hitched. My father's shoulders sagged. Virginia didn't react. She never did when the truth finally caught up. Outside, my mother reached for me. "Please, we can still fix this." I stepped back. "You already chose what mattered." Virginia placed herself gently between us. "This is finished." As we walked away, the weight I had carried for years didn't vanish. It shifted. Justice didn't feel warm. It felt final. Virginia visited my apartment one afternoon with a folder tucked under her arm. She didn't dramatize it. "The money is secured." Her voice remained even. "A trust. In your name. No one else decides how it's used." I nodded, the weight of that sentence settling slowly. "Thank you for ending it." She studied me for a moment. "I didn't end it." "You did. I just made sure no one could rewrite it again." We drank tea in silence, not the comfortable kind, the honest kind. Before leaving, she added one last thought. "Family should never require you to disappear to survive." After she left, I sat alone, listening to the city outside my window. Nothing felt dramatic. Nothing needed to be. Some stories don't end with apologies. They end with boundaries. If you've stayed with me this far, you already know why this matters. Stories like this aren't about winning. They're about choosing yourself when silence becomes too expensive. If this resonated, carry it with you. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is name the truth and let it stand.